Good morning, everyone, and welcome once again to Father Jim's Neighborhood. And as you can see, I have my little conductor's hat on this morning, so I hope that you will enjoy the trip that we're going to be taking together. Probably be a little longer today than maybe a couple of the other ones, since there are several important things that I want to visit with you about. And I'm just going to take the hat off and set it here to the side for the rest of the time that we're together. This past Sunday, in the opinion section of the Des Moines Register, there was a piece written by an individual regarding Catholics and Holy Communion. And at least as I read that, the implication was by the author that while other businesses and even some other churches are opening, that our nation's bishops are dragging their feet on reopening our churches. And the other implication that I took from that, while it was not explicitly stated, was that this is a plan on the part of the bishops to make Catholics suffer for the many individuals who have disagreements with the church and all of these types of things. That is completely false. That is completely false. And this individual, I think, is doing a great disservice to us. Fact of the matter is, the bishops are very, very concerned. They, like you, like myself, grieve that we are not able to gather together for public worship at this time. They, like you, like me, hope that that day will come when we can gather again. And in some instances, as you've heard, some dioceses have begun a limited reopening. As I was thinking about what I wanted to visit with you about this morning, I happened to reflect on the fact that no bishop today, and certainly no priest today, in his pastoral courses in the seminary had a course, Pandemic Response 101. So we're having to learn as we go along, and learning always takes time. And we want not to rush decisions, but we don't want to delay them either. But particularly, we don't want to rush decisions that could have unintended consequences. I read this morning on one of the sites that I normally check in my email that at least one parish in the Archdiocese of Galveston-Houston, they opened up. There were a couple people there that had the virus, and now they've had to close again. Who knows what the future may hold, for us. Experts are saying that we could have a wave again this fall, so we may have to go through, much of what we've been going through the last couple of months. Again, I pray God not, but we have to be prepared for that. All that being said, I want to just at least talk a little bit about what things may look like when we do reopen. I have here in front of me on the desk the guidelines that Archbishop Jacobs has issued for when we do reopen our parishes for public worship. These guidelines, I'm sharing them with our parish staff, and that they're to be in-house for now among the pastors and the parish staffs as we continue our planning. Our parish staff in our staff meetings for the past month, the one and only topic has been how are we going to go about this, and what do we need to do? And we've got quite a lengthy list of things drawn up. I'm going to talk about a couple of things here this morning. First of all, one of the things that we know is that when we can gather again, people who are particularly vulnerable, senior citizens, and I'm one of them now, people who have compromised health issues, and particularly the very elderly, should, if at all possible, refrain from gathering in a larger group of people, simply because the risk for contraction and the complications from it are much higher. To that extent, and for people who simply will not want to come out until things are much more clear than they are now, or possibly that a vaccine is available, we have begun exploring how we can broadcast Mass, much as like we've been doing via Facebook and YouTube in the Burke Chapel, from the main church worship space when that time comes that we can gather together as a large group. So we are working on that. The other thing that I think is going to be important is that I've been certainly giving some thought to this, how we are going to designate areas where people can be seated in the assembly and where they can't. So people are not going to be able to sit maybe where you were customarily used to sitting, because we are going to have to seal off some of the pews in order to keep social distancing. It will be required that people come to church that they wear a mask. If you don't wear a mask, we will have to ask you please not to come into the assembly. We will not have hymnals available. If we have a worship aid, it'll be a piece of paper that you will be handed and that you will need to throw away after Mass is over. Also, we will most likely, and we're used to this already, we will have tape in the aisles, particularly the center aisle, 6 feet apart, again for social distancing. We're going to need to take some time with our hospitality ministers and ushers so that we can train them as far as dismissing people for communion. Communion will be only under the form of the body of the Lord, the consecrated bread. Obviously, we withdrew the cup a while back. That will not be coming back for the foreseeable future. It is strongly encouraged again that people receive Holy Communion in the hand to avoid possible passing on of, inadvertently, the communion minister touching the tongue of someone. Disinfectant will be there, a hand sanitizer for the ministers of Holy Communion as well. Ministers will be kept to a minimum. Very likely, I may or may not be assisted by a deacon, much like we're seeing Mass in the Burke Chapel right now. I know those of you who are parts of our music ministry, various ensembles or choir members, for the time being, you are going to remain among the faithful, celebrating from the assembly. Music will be just simply probably Bob accompanying us on the organ or the piano, and then perhaps Bob himself, or maybe a cantor, but probably would be the same cantor every week, leading some of the other responses. Weddings and funerals. Weddings and funerals will be permitted. However, the 10-person limit, and one of those 10 present would be the presider, will need to be enforced. As far as funerals are concerned, there would be no post-funeral gathering at all. Baptisms can be celebrated, but again, they would have to be individual baptisms, no 2 or 3 infants at one time. We will need to, drain the font and all of those types of things. And again, 10-person limit, one of those is the presider. When we do resume public worship, we're going to need some parishioners. If you're looking for a service project, we're going to be willing to sign up and help us sanitize the church after each celebration of Mass. So how many Masses we may have on a weekend, I doubt we will have 3. We probably may start with 1, and if then need be, go to 2. Again, in terms of who may come, I'm seeing various things from different dioceses. Some are talking about a lottery system, some are talking about people calling for reservations, some are talking about that on a given Sunday, everybody whose last names begin with A through H comes that Sunday, and then the next Sunday, I through, R or something. However that is, we don't have that worked out yet, but just realize, you may not be able to come absolutely every Sunday. Same thing with weekday Masses. Some of the dioceses are saying if you can't, if you're not part of the group for a particular Sunday, consider coming at a weekday Mass. So those of you who come to weekday Mass, that may be where we begin. I would ask you, pick a day that you will come, but then don't come on the other days to give other people the opportunity to come. If we begin just with weekday masses, we are going to be pulling out a number of chairs from the Burke Chapel in order to have social distancing. So realize that there are going to be some changes there. I know people are anxious to come, but we're just simply not going to be able to accommodate everybody. We're doing the best that we can. As much as I enjoy greeting you before Mass and after Mass, I will not be out in the narthex. I will simply get dressed in one of the front sacristies and come out from the sacristy for Mass and recess into the sacristy. The same thing at the end of Mass. Ushers will dismiss each pew where people are seated individually, so you will not all be able to leave at once. And there's to be no congregating in the narthex before or after Mass. You come into church. After you're dismissed, you leave, you go out to your car, you go home. We simply have to do this to help keep everybody healthy. I know that this has been a long presentation this morning. Again, numbers of these things are things that we're currently looking at. Some of them may be very well applied. Some are going to have to be applied. But I just wanted to give you an update as to how things may look when that time comes when we are able to gather again for worship. So let's continue to keep one another in our prayers. Know that you are in mine. I pray your prayers for me, for the staff, for the Archbishop, as we have to make these necessary changes that can both allow us to once again assemble for public worship, but also keep us as safe as possible. God bless you.